The entire truck market just got flipped on its head, and nobody saw it coming. Not Ford, not Ram, not Toyota, and definitely not the dealerships who've been marking up pickups by tens of thousands of dollars. Because today, GM's CEO just made an announcement so massive, so market-shifting, that it sent shockwaves through every corner of the auto industry. An $8,000 pickup truck. Yes, you heard that right, $8,000. A brand new GM-built truck priced lower than some used motorcycles, cheaper than a mid-range e-bike, and so disruptive that analysts are already calling it the single biggest threat to the full-size truck segment in decades. And here's where things get even crazier. GM isn't pitching this as a gimmick, a limited special, or some stripped-down work mule. They're calling it the future of affordable American utility. And for the first time in years, GM is directly challenging the idea that trucks have to start at $45,000 or more. Insiders say executives were tired of watching average buyers get priced out of their own market. Average truck prices are near 60 grand, monthly payments are through the roof, and ordinary working Americans are being told the only way to own a truck is to finance it for 7 years. GM finally snapped. And this $8,000 machine is their answer. What instantly terrified the competition isn't just the price, but the timing. Ford is struggling with F-150 inventory stacking up on lots. Ram is offering record incentives to move units. Toyota is facing backlash for its new hybrid-only Tundra strategy. And in the middle of that chaos, GM walks in and says, "Here's a truck the average American can actually afford again." According to early leaks, this ultra-budget pickup is built on a simplified chassis inspired by GM's global platforms, something rugged, simple, durable, and designed for ease of repair instead of flashy features. No 12-inch screens, no luxury packages, no complicated electronics that cost thousands to fix. Instead, GM is going old school. Steel bed, mechanical switches, a small but efficient engine, and a design focused on work, not lifestyle marketing. For rural buyers, small businesses, farmers, landscapers, city delivery fleets, construction crews, and first-time truck buyers, this is the kind of product people have been begging for. And the reaction online has been explosive, with many saying GM just revived the spirit of the classic S10 and the early Colorado, back when trucks were affordable, simple, and built to last. But here's the secret reason this move has shaken the entire industry. GM is not just selling a cheap truck. They are launching a strategy designed to completely undercut Asian and Chinese automakers who were preparing to flood the US with ultra-low-cost compact pickups. BYD, Great Wall, Changan, and several other Chinese manufacturers already have $9,000 to $11,000 trucks in global markets. Ford, Toyota, and Ram were terrified of these models entering the US. GM knew that if they didn't make the first move, someone else would. So instead of waiting for the invasion, they fired the first shot. By releasing an $8,000 truck now, GM makes it far harder for foreign brands to enter the market competitively, because nobody expected GM, of all companies, to price something this aggressively. And even more shocking, insiders claim GM is prepared to take thin margins on this truck just to dominate the lower end of the market and rebuild brand loyalty with younger buyers who abandoned American trucks because they were simply too expensive. And you want to know what's even crazier? Rumors already suggest GM is planning multiple versions of this ultra-affordable truck, including a long bed work model, a light off-road package, and even a fleet-specific trim aimed directly at government agencies and delivery companies that have been desperately searching for lower-cost vehicles. And while the big automakers have spent the last 5 years bragging about EV futures, giant tablet screens, and luxury truck lifestyles, GM is quietly reversing course and going back to the formula that built America's truck culture in the first place: practicality, durability, and price. Behind closed doors, sources say this strategy is meant to bring millions of new buyers back into the GM ecosystem, especially younger Americans who grew up seeing trucks as nothing more than unaffordable status symbols. In fact, surveys show that most first-time buyers today won't even consider a pickup because the price tags are simply too insane. GM wants to reset that psychology entirely. An $8,000 truck doesn't just compete, it rewrites what a truck can be in 2025 and beyond. Meanwhile, the competition is in full panic mode. Ford executives reportedly held an emergency meeting the same day GM's announcement dropped, trying to figure out how to justify the price of their base F-150, which now costs more than some luxury sedans. Ram dealers are bracing for cancellations as buyers wait to see what GM's final specs look like. Toyota insiders are worried that their plans for the next Tacoma could be overshadowed before the prototype even reaches production. Even Honda, which barely has one foot in the truck market, is now stuck wondering how to compete with a vehicle priced lower than some Honda scooters. And the panic doesn't stop there. Dealerships are furious because this $8,000 truck kills high-margin upselling. For years, dealers have relied on forcing buyers into loaded trims just to make trucks profitable. GM's move threatens that model entirely because this truck is designed from day one to be affordable without dealer nonsense. Fleet managers and small business owners are already flooding GM with inquiries, and some dealerships say they've received dozens of calls from people who haven't bought a brand new vehicle in 15 or even 20 years. What's even more fascinating is how GM pulled this off at a time when raw material prices, labor, and logistics costs are hitting record highs. Some analysts think GM is using a blend of global manufacturing, simplified engineering, and modular components to keep costs down. Others believe GM is strategically sacrificing profits on this truck in exchange for larger long-term gains across their lineup. There are even whispers that GM's leadership wants to prove a larger point, that the inflated truck prices seen across the industry are not a necessity, but a choice. By showing a functioning U.S. market-ready pickup at $8,000, GM is essentially embarrassing every major automaker that insisted prices had to be sky-high. This is why online reactions have exploded with comments like, "Finally, a truck for real people," and "GM just ended the truck bubble." Whether those claims are true or not, one thing is certain. This bold move has completely shifted the conversation around what trucks should cost. And as the dust settles, something even bigger is starting to emerge. Signs that GM may be preparing a full-scale revival of compact, old-school trucks, vehicles that prioritize affordability and functionality over luxury and gimmicks. Leaks mention possible electric assist variants, hybrid options, and even a rugged off-grid version aimed at preppers and rural communities who want a simple, reliable machine that doesn't rely on expensive electronics. If GM really follows through on these plans, it won't just disrupt the market, it could force every automaker to rethink their entire truck lineup from the ground up. And while the competition scrambles to catch up, GM seems more confident than ever, almost as if this $8,000 pickup is just the opening shot in a much larger battle they've been planning behind the scenes. And that's when things take an even more dramatic turn, because new reports suggest GM is about to reveal a second shockwave that could make the $8,000 pickup look like just the warm-up act. According to insiders, GM is preparing to announce a nationwide low-cost ownership program tied directly to this truck, something that could completely rewrite how Americans buy and maintain vehicles. Early leaks describe a system where buyers can lock in fixed-price parts, drastically reduced service costs, and even a simplified warranty that eliminates dealership markups on basic repairs. In other words, GM isn't just selling the cheapest truck in America, they're trying to make it the cheapest vehicle to own. Period. This is the part that has dealership groups absolutely furious, because if GM follows through, it could permanently cut off one of their biggest profit sources: inflated service and maintenance pricing. Some dealers are already calling it the end of the traditional dealership model, and honestly, it might be. But what's even more shocking is the reported sourcing strategy behind this truck. GM appears to be using a global network of parts suppliers, the same strategy companies like Toyota and VW used decades ago to dominate the affordable car market. By standardizing components across regions and models, GM can lower costs dramatically without sacrificing reliability. Imagine a truck where the headlight assembly is interchangeable with other GM models worldwide, where the brake components are used in 3 different continents, and where even the interior switches come from a shared parts bin designed for simplicity and longevity. This approach not only slashes manufacturing expenses, but also ensures parts remain cheap and easy to find, even years down the road. For buyers, that means repairs won't cost hundreds of dollars like they do on today's tech-heavy trucks. And for GM, it means they can scale this truck into multiple markets without redesigning it from scratch. Now here's where the story takes a twist. Industry analysts believe GM isn't just targeting Ford, Ram, or Toyota. They're aiming directly at China's growing presence in the global truck market. Brands like BYD, Great Wall, and Chang'an have been preparing low-cost pickup trucks for international expansion, many priced between $9,000 and $15,000. GM knows that if those trucks enter the US before an American company responds, they could dominate the lower end of the market almost overnight. So by launching an $8,000 truck first, GM essentially blocks the door. It forces foreign brands to rethink their strategy and makes it harder to justify higher prices or premium trims. In fact, some experts say this move is so aggressive that the US government might quietly support it as a way to keep American manufacturing competitive. And with tariffs and trade battles already heating up globally, an ultra-cheap American truck could become a political talking point as much as an automotive one. But the biggest surprise isn't the strategy, it's the demand. GM reportedly underestimated how many people would want a no-nonsense, affordable pickup. Just hours after the announcement, interest reportedly overwhelmed GM's internal systems, with reservation numbers far exceeding early projections. Social media lit up with tradesmen saying they could finally afford a new work truck. Young drivers who thought they'd never own anything but a beat-up used car suddenly had a real option. Even retirees on fixed incomes were saying this is the kind of truck they've been waiting decades for. And this overwhelming interest is creating a ripple effect GM didn't expect. Investors are now pushing the company to expand production before the truck even hits the market. But that's just the beginning, because whispers inside GM's engineering division hint that this whole project may actually be part of a much larger blueprint to rebuild GM's dominance in segments they abandoned years ago. Engineers familiar with the project say the $8,000 pickup is only the first model in what GM is calling an essential vehicle platform, a stripped-down, ultra-efficient architecture designed to support a whole family of low-cost vehicles. Think compact SUVs, farm utility rigs, fleet vans, and even a small off-road buggy. Simple machines with minimal electronics, easy-to-service parts, and price tags the average American can actually afford. This is the part that's sending shockwaves through the industry, because if GM rolls out multiple models on this platform, they won't just disrupt trucks, they'll disrupt the entire entry-level vehicle market. Imagine buying a brand new small SUV for under $12,000 or a tough little work van for $10,000, all sharing the same inexpensive components and cheap-to-maintain design philosophy. Insiders say GM wants to become the brand that brings affordability back to the US, while every other automaker keeps chasing luxury margins. And the timing couldn't be more strategic. The US economy is still recovering from years of inflation, interest rates are sky high, and the average new car monthly payment has become a financial nightmare. People are walking away from dealerships because they simply can't justify $700 or $800 a month for a basic truck. GM's leadership reportedly saw a once-in-a-generation opportunity. While everyone else pushes bigger screens, leather seats, and luxury trims, GM is offering dignity and practicality, a return to common-sense vehicles that don't require a second mortgage. Auto historians are already comparing this moment to the rise of the original Ford Model T or the post-war compact car boom, when a company stepped in and gave the public exactly what they needed, not what the industry wanted to sell. And if the forecasts are accurate, this $8,000 truck may become the catalyst for a new era of affordability that forces every automaker to rethink their values. But here's where things get even more intense. Massive rumors are circulating that GM's CEO personally pushed this truck forward against internal resistance. Some executives reportedly argued the margins were too low, the risk too high, and the price too aggressive. But the CEO insisted that GM had to make a bold, culture-defining move, one that would prove American automakers can still innovate without relying on high luxury prices or complicated technology. This leadership gamble is already paying off in publicity alone, but the real test will be production. And that's why supply chain experts are watching closely. If GM manages to ramp up production smoothly and deliver these trucks at scale, it will send a message to the entire global auto industry. Affordability isn't impossible, it's simply been ignored. And now, leaked documents suggest that GM might be preparing a mass market reveal event unlike anything we've seen in years, where the full production-ready version of this $8,000 truck will be shown in detail, including its performance specs, towing capacity, crash ratings, and real-world fuel economy. Early prototypes reportedly deliver shockingly good mileage for a truck and can handle more payload than some compact pickups costing 4 or 5 times as much. If those numbers hold true, the competition won't just be embarrassed. They'll be forced into emergency redesigns of their own entry-level models. And just when you think the story can't get any bigger, new insider chatter hints that GM might also be preparing to announce a groundbreaking partnership that could supercharge this entire plan. Sources close to the situation say GM has been quietly meeting with multiple US-based manufacturing suppliers, companies that specialize in low-cost powertrains, stamped steel components, and modular chassis systems. The goal? To create a fully domestic supply chain capable of producing hundreds of thousands of these trucks without relying on expensive overseas imports. If this partnership becomes official, GM would not only cut production costs even further, but also position this truck as a proudly American-made alternative to the growing wave of affordable imports headed toward US shores. And in today's political climate, that alone could become a massive selling point. Lawmakers in several states are reportedly cheering this move, hoping GM's approach could restore jobs, reopen dormant factories, and spark a manufacturing revival in areas hit hardest by plant closures over the last decade. Meanwhile, auto analysts are predicting a price war. They say Ford and Ram will have no choice but to react. Ford might rush out a stripped-down Maverick variant, Ram might revive its old Dakota platform, and Toyota could be forced into the compact truck segment again for the first time in decades. If that happens, it could spark the biggest affordability battle the auto industry has seen since the 1980s. And if GM stays ahead, if they push out additional trims, expand production capacity, and stay committed to that $8,000 price, they could dominate the lower-end market for years. But that's not even the most explosive rumor, because whispers from GM's proving grounds suggest that engineers have been testing an ultra-high mileage version of this truck, one that uses a small displacement hybrid system designed for durability over power. Test drivers claim this variant is getting fuel economy numbers that would have been unthinkable for a truck a decade ago. And if GM includes this as an optional model, it could appeal to rural buyers, farmers, small businesses, and long-distance drivers who want something simple, cheap, and insanely efficient. And if that sounds like a game-changer, wait until you hear what insiders say GM might reveal next, because the most stunning whispers coming out of GM's tech center point to a feature nobody expected on an $8,000 truck, a modular power system that allows the owner to upgrade the vehicle over time without replacing the entire truck. Think of it like this. You buy the base model for $8,000. Down the road, if you want a little more power, better towing capability, or improved fuel economy, GM may offer simple bolt-on modules that can be installed at home or at any basic mechanic shop. These could include upgraded suspension kits, swappable engine components, or even a plug-in hybrid add-on unit that clips into a dedicated port in the chassis. This concept would make the truck future-proof in a way that modern vehicles simply aren't. Instead of forcing you to buy a brand new model every few years, GM could keep you in the same truck for decades, upgrading only what you actually need. It's like the anti-dealership, anti-upcharge, anti-inflation approach to truck ownership. And if GM pulls it off, the rest of the industry will have no idea how to compete. The ripple effects are already being felt. Financial analysts say GM's stock is now being watched more intensely than at any point in the last decade. Investors see this move as a possible turning point, not just for GM, but for the entire American automotive landscape. Meanwhile, social media is overflowing with excitement. People are calling this truck the hero of the working class, the return of common sense, and the first real vehicle launch for normal people in years. Videos breaking down the announcement are going viral across TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram, racking up millions of views as buyers react with disbelief. And beneath all the hype, there's a deeper emotional thread. For the first time, Americans feel like an automaker is listening to them, just giving them a straightforward, affordable truck that meets real needs. And this is where the real power move comes in. Whispers suggest GM might unveil a rural and off-grid package specifically designed for farmers, ranchers, and people living in remote areas. And just when you think this announcement has hit its limit, insiders are hinting that GM's CEO might be preparing to reveal one last twist that could send shockwaves through every major automaker once again.